Hey everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to paint some daisies, and this is just a bee painting that I did, and I'm super excited to paint some daisies. Now, the one thing about daisies is they're completely white, so I find they're more difficult to paint than a lot of other flowers. So basically what I've done here is after I made my yellow circle, I went ahead, loaded up a nice round brush, and it really doesn't matter what kind of round brush you have, but this will determine your petal size. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of start one off for you right here. You need a little bit of yellow medium. Now remember, yellow mediums, the issue you're gonna have with these is that they're not very opaque, which means you will be able to see through them. So a good way to deal with that is to just, sorry, my palette is super messy, but a good way to deal with that is to just add a little bit of white. I'm also gonna go ahead and get out some yellow ochre. Any kind of darker yellow will work for that. Like, don't be so, worried if you don't have that exact color. That is fine. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and mix. You just need a little bit of white to help make that yellow more opaque, and that's gonna really just make sure it's not as translucent. And I'm also gonna grab a little bit of my yellow ochre and just mix in a little bit of white again. The yellow ochre is more opaque than that yellow medium. All right, so once I have this, I'm gonna go ahead and make a center. I kind of want my flower to be over here because I have a lot of flowers, so I think I'll just break it up. And I'll make a small one. I'm gonna try to make it small. Usually I end up making them too big. So we're just gonna go ahead, drop down a little bit of the yellow medium. You can see it's still kind of transparent, but that is okay. Daisies actually have a little bit of green on the edges, if you notice. I'm gonna go and take a little bit of my yellow medium and just kind of throw that in there to add a little bit of variation. I think it makes it look a lot nicer. Rinsing off my brush here. I always just use old t-shirts that I've cut up to wipe off my brushes rather than wasting tissue paper. So now that my brush is nice and clean, it's slightly damp, but not too damp. I'm just gonna go in to my white right here, load up my brush. So that just means I'm gonna grab the paint. And then again, I'm just gonna tap off. I don't want too much, tap off the excess. And then for daisies, it's actually really, really easy. The petals are quite simple. All you have to do is wherever you want your petal to be, I'm just gonna plop it down and drag. Plop it down and drag. And again, I want this one to be small, so I'm gonna try to keep my petals nice and small here. Down and drag. Pressure, and then the pressure lessens as I take it towards the center because I want it to be more of a tip. Now, don't be worried if your petals don't look perfect, because if you think about it, in flowers, petals aren't perfect. They are all different, which is what makes them perfect. So I'm just gonna keep doing that same motion over and over again. And right now I know it doesn't look beautiful, but hopefully we can get it there. All right, so I'm gonna let that layer dry. Daisies have petals that come up between other petals. So if you take a look at my reference photo here, is just a Google image. You can see there are petals upon petals in daisies. You have petals between and underneath the petals. Now, one thing I want you to notice is, to our eye, yes, we know that the daisy is white, but it looks 3D because of these shadows. So you have some shadow right here. You have a shadow right here. Actually, each petal, if you notice, has sort of these two darker lines coming in, and that's what's gonna give the daisy its texture, make it look more 3D. Also notice the petals that are under, well, because they're under, they're gonna have the shadow of the petals that are above. So we're gonna work those in, and that takes some time, of course, depending on how realistic you're gonna make your daisies look. For this painting, I'm not trying to be too realistic, but I am gonna add a little bit of shadow to make my daisies look a little little more 3D. I want a little more depth to my painting. So I'm gonna take a little, just a little drop of black. You do not need a lot of black. A little bit goes a long way. I'm just gonna make sure I always rinse and dry my brushes in between because I don't want them to get wrecked. I'm just gonna grab a little small detail brush here. This is just a round Taklon. I actually bought this in India. Nothing fancy, just a small round Taklon made for acrylics and watercolors. Now to mix a nice light gray, remember you're gonna go ahead and just gonna take a little bit of my white, plop it over here. Okay, I'm gonna grab just a bit of that black and mix it in, and notice how it only took a touch of black to turn all of that into a gray. I actually might add a little more white. I don't want it to be that dark. Mix, mix, mix. Kind of wipe off your brush. You don't want that much on your brush. All right, here we go. So we're gonna pick a daisy to start working with. I think I'm going to just turn my painting over. And we're gonna work on maybe, let's say this daisy. It looks kind of flat, right? So I'm gonna start by adding a few striations. So I'm gonna take a look and see which ones I feel like are on top. So I feel like this daisy, this leaf, or this petal is on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add 2 striations to that one. And then this one is definitely underneath. All I'm gonna do is add a little bit of that gray underneath. And I know it doesn't look like a lot, and maybe because it's the light, you can add a little more black into the mix, maybe make that gray a little bit darker. And come over here. Again, this petal looks like it's under this petal. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of that shadow right there. Now, if you notice that shadow looking too intense, as I see mine, all I'm gonna do, I just have just a nice little flat brush. It's called a Chisel Blender. I got this from Michael's, and what I've done is it's lightly wet. You can see I'm actually gonna go ahead and wipe that off because I do not want this brush to be too wet, but I do want it to be damp. Also, it has some color on it, so I'm just gonna clean that up, and I'm gonna go in, and where I have the edge of that shadow, I'm actually just gonna very gently buff it out. This is gonna give me a thinner line, and it's gonna sort of distribute that shadow. Because remember, shadows are, I'm gonna zoom in for you here. Shadows are stronger when they're closer to the object, and they lighten up as they get far away, right? Okay, so this petal right here, I know it's hard to see, but this petal right here is gonna be underneath these 2 petals, which means it's going to have a bit of a shadow, but again, that shadow looks really, really strong. So again, I'm gonna go in with my blender, and my blender is fairly dry, and if it's a little too dry and it's not really blending too well, you can wet it a little bit, wipe it off, and then get it to just take that shadow and just move it around a little bit. Again, remembering our daisies have the 3 lines on each petal. So this petal's on top, so I'm gonna go ahead and add in my 3 lines, or 2 lines, sorry. Maybe this one can have 2 lines. This one can have 2 lines. And again, I'm not too worried about this, but I definitely think this is just gonna give sort of the right amount of texture and depth that I want my painting to have. Slide up for you. Okay. This one as well. My 2 striations. Again, you see this petal right here is underneath that petal. So again, I'm gonna give it a shadow. And again, I feel like that shadow is a little too strong. I'm just gonna rinse that same brush off, wipe it on my clean cloth, and just sort of disperse that shadow. Just take those edges and move them out. And don't be afraid to adjust. I want that tip to be a little stronger, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of white to it there. So any of the tips that I see that are sometimes depending on the white paint that you have, because I do not have my professional set of paints here with me right now. I'm working with what I have, but again, you can paint with these, and this was just the Walmart brand of paint for my white right now. Again, I'm just gonna darken up those tips. A little more white. Yeah. There we go. A little more. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna keep working on our daisy. Just rinsed off my brush again and dried it. I'm gonna go back in with that gray that I had mixed before on my palette. Again, remembering where we see some lines on the daisy. Just gonna add those in. And again, this petal is underneath the two petals on top. So I'm gonna give them that one a bit of a shadow. This one is under that one. So wherever you feel like you see the ones that are under, just give them a little bit of shadow. Okay. So we're getting close to making our daisy look a little more realistic. All right, I've wiped off my brush again. I'm just gonna go in and sort of blend my gray and my white together. My brush is very slightly damp, barely damp actually. And if you find you're having trouble blending this because your paint's already dried, because it is acrylic, so remember, acrylic paints dry really, really fast. Just add a little bit of that white and you can blend until your heart's desire. Great. Right. Okay. Now for the center, I want my center to look a little bit better than what it is right now. So if you look at a daisy center, notice all the dark values inside, and then the the light yellow on top, and then you have a very slight, really sort of chartreusey green. So chartreusey green is just like this really, really sort of lime green. Okay, so in order to do that, there's a few different ways you can do this. I find it's easier to put in my darker color first, and then top off with my lighter color. So we're gonna make a little bit of like maybe a brown color. I'm actually just gonna pull from the colors that are on my palette already. So grabbing my yellow ochre right here, and I want this to be sort of like a brown but like a green, so just think natural colors. I grab that black and just throw it in there, and that is going to be just the perfect color that I need. It's like an olive, like a super dark olive green. We're gonna take that, I'm gonna go ahead and just actually paint the entire center of my daisy with that color. Okay, great. All right, I'm gonna let that dry for just a second. Remember, acrylics do not take that long to dry. In the meantime, I'm gonna mix some of these colors. So I do want, again, that yellow. So these is going to be my highlights. But remember, the center of your daisy, you have some dark spots, you have some light spots, you have a variation of yellows, you have some yellow ochre. So I'm just going to make a variety of some colors here with my yellow so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, now that I have a mixture, going back to my center, again, I'm going to take a look at this daisy right here. We're just going to point out a few things. This half of my daisy is lighter. You can see that. This side is slightly darker, and that's just because of the way the light is hitting these daisies. I'm assuming the light is coming from over here somewhere, which is why these sides darker. This side is these sides are lighter, and then these sides are darker. So the light is hitting this way. I'm not too concerned about light in my photo. I'm gonna think of it more in terms of an object. If you think about an object and this is a sphere, well, the light should hit the highest parts of my sphere first, and then these sides should be slightly darker. So that's how I'm gonna work through this. And I'm just gonna add a bunch of variation. I'm not gonna be too concerned about light because of the type of art I am creating right now. I don't need to be concerned about that. On my brush, I have my yellow ochre mixed with my white. Okay, so remember, this is gonna be a little bit darker. Actually gonna grab a little bit more of that yellow ochre because that's what I want near the edges. So I'm gonna work that yellow ochre into the edges, just making some sporadic dots, but still thinking about the overall shape of a circle, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and add that in. I do want some of that black, or sorry, that really dark olivey green to show through, so I've left some space, you can see that. Go ahead and rinse my brush off, wipe it down. All right. When I wipe my brush down, so this is, I guess this is important. It can help you get shapes that you want with your brush, but when I wipe my brush down, just side note, I actually start from the base and then wipe. And I actually give it a little roll because I want that tip. So I want this to be a nice fine tip. Okay, go ahead. My brush is actually quite dry right now. I've dried it off and I have a nice point. Okay, you can even use your fingers to really just make a sharper point if you need it. And I do want it for this because I want my highlights to really be very small. So I'm gonna grab that yellow medium that I mixed with the white, and I'm gonna go in and start working that in. Small, we're gonna again zoom in. Ooh, that's not zooming in. Oh. There you go. Zoom in a little bit, grab a little bit more, and just add dots of that in. And near the edges, I'm actually being very, very light with it. I don't want a lot of that there. I'm just gonna do this to make it a little messy. And if I poke down hard enough, because the other layers have not dried yet, it's gonna actually mix with those a little bit. Now again, I want the center to be even lighter, so I took that yellow medium, mixed it, I'll show you. Took yellow medium and I had that white really close to it, so I just took the edge of it and mixed more white into it. Again, to get that point, I'm just rolling my brush out of there. I'm gonna go back to our, there we go. I'm just gonna add the brighter yellow closer towards the center. Okay, looks great. Yes, okay. Again, even lighter, I'm gonna mix in more white with the yellow. I'm just gonna add more white to the same yellow, and again, twirl that brush around and just add only a few specks of that. You don't need a lot of this one because that is your brightest color, okay? Now, last but not least, remember daisies have a slight chartreusey green going on. So I'm just gonna grab, I just have some light, oops, drop my brush, light olive green. So I'm gonna zoom out, if I can zoom out, there we go. Okay. Take my light olive green, I'm gonna place it quite close to my yellow, and I don't need a lot because daisies do not have a lot of this color, just a very, very small amount. I am gonna mix this with my yellow medium. So we're just gonna grab yellow medium, a little bit of that white, that's okay. Just gonna pop that there. Oh, you can't see me. Take a little bit of that green, add it in there. You don't need a lot of that green because it's not green, it's more of a yellowy green. So now that I have that nice chartreusey color, again, I do not need a lot of it. That is just going to go around the edges. And we're just gonna take that, and remember, it extends very slightly onto the petals of the daisy. You can see me just adding it, and it's okay if you get a little bit onto the center, remembering your flower is not perfect, nor should it look perfect, otherwise it's not gonna give you the effect that you want. Yeah, and if you wanna just extend that a little bit further, great. rinse off my brush, seeing if there's anything else I want to do to my daisy. Maybe add a few spots of white, maybe brighten up some of the tips of the petal. And I think I am basically done with this daisy. I'm going to zoom out and just show you how that daisy looks in comparison to the rest of the daisies. All right, here we go. Oh, bad lighting. Get some better lighting for you guys. There we go. Ta-da! And you can see how much better the half center, I can get it to focus, how much better the half center of that daisy looks in comparison to the rest of the daisies. You can see it looks a lot more 3D. It really has a lot more dimension. The center looks really, really nice. Yeah, I really like the center of that one, actually. I'll zoom in a little bit more for you guys so you can see that. Yeah, look at that. Okay. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you have requests for other things, let me know. Also, you can head over to my Etsy page if you're interested in purchasing these lovely bees. I think they're just so cute, getting ready for spring and summer. I'm gonna work on the rest of my daisies and make them look just as awesome. All right, thanks for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to like that button. Thank you.